Well, that result at 2.20 today, that interest rate cut, first one since 2020. Starter's gun's now really been fired, hasn't it, on that election? So what does this cut, with the potential of maybe another one even during an election campaign, what does it mean? Joining me now, Sky News political editor Andrew Clennell. Great to see you, Andrew. There's been all sorts of analysis on this. What's your view on who this helps politically?
Oh, it helps Labor politically, but I'm not sure that it helps it make much in the way of gains. It just helps it arrest any slide, I think. It has the potential to do that anyway. It gives Labor a bit of momentum that they can take into an election they'll call, I expect, in around 2 weeks, the PM. He'd probably call it sooner, but he doesn't want to cross over the WA election too much. And it allows the government to say, look, there is hope ahead. Our plan has worked. Wages have gone up. Inflation, sure, is awful, has been awful, but it has been that way around the world. Unemployment is low. Now, the Prime Minister, Steve, went on Sydney radio this afternoon, and one of the callers or texters in there pointed out a block of cheese is $11. And I think that's a great illustration of how this is no panacea for Anthony Albanese and Jim Chalmers, but it is a hell of a lot better for them than, the alternative, which is no rate cut, no hope in sight, no end to this economic pain, and that would have put them in a disastrous position. So I had a Labor wag sort of say to me, the windows have exploded in the executive wing of Parliament from the sigh of relief from all the people working there. And I think that is very much the case. And what we're looking at is a pretty fascinating contest because Peter Dutton hasn't got the numbers to win. He's not far off having the numbers to win enough seats to form minority government, but he needs a couple of points. And there's no way, when you look at the numbers, Labor is keeping majority government. So it looks like a hung parliament is almost certain. It's just who wins that hung parliament. And that is very much dependent on the campaign. And after, decades of experience with both of us, it's quite unusual, in fact, isn't it, Steve? Because most campaigns, we know in our hearts of hearts as, media, commentators, journalists, whatever, who's going to win before the campaign gets underway. This is an absolute toss of the coin.
If you were doing tactics for the opposition after today, you'd have to urge caution from Peter Dutton. They can't go around, and neither can Angus Taylor, saying, oh, well, it's only one small rate cut. It's only 0.25%. It's only going to mean, $100 a month for a small mortgage. They've got to not do that because regardless of the fact whether the public thinks that, they don't want to be seen to be, raining on the parade, do they?
Yeah, well, this goes back to your first question, in the sense you'll recall John Howard in the 2004 campaign saying, who do you trust? Who do you trust to keep interest rates low? So this has taken a bit of the wind of the sails out of Dutton and Angus Taylor because they could have used a similar line. Now they can't. This is the first cut of what banks are saying will be a couple more this year. Now, the Reserve Bank's saying, hold your horses, we're not looking to cut in April. They pretty much indicated that in their statement. But, the people who predict these things, the banks are saying, yes, we will get a couple more this year. So it's kind of like we're on the way out. So I think what they need to say, and they are starting to say, is this is good news. We hope there's more, but the damage is already done. And as a coalition government, we can manage the economy better than Labor, and we can do more for the private sector than Labor can. They're too focused on the public sector. And I think that's pretty much where they'll have to go.
It's interesting watching Michelle Bullock because she concentrated on inflation and she kept making the point that the inflation dragon hasn't been killed here yet. And that's what people out in the suburbs are feeling. The price of petrol, the electricity bill, the grocery bill. Yes, it's nice to have a little bit off the mortgage, but that's not really helping in the wider area where everything costs more. And I think that line from Dutton and Taylor where they say, well, do you feel better off under Anthony Albanese than you did 4 years ago? It probably works to a degree.
Works to a degree, but not enough. And you have to ask, why is that? And it must be because people aren't convinced about Peter Dutton yet. and B, do recognise and realise that this has occurred in the US, it has occurred in the UK, it has occurred in Canada, it has occurred in New Zealand. It's a global problem emanating out of COVID. So it becomes a debate about could the government have done more to stop this inflation being as bad as it is? And they would say, well, we've got low unemployment and we've lifted wages. So that's kind of the debate here. But yeah, you're right. I mean, insurance is the one you didn't mention as well. And Peter Dutton said on the weekend he was looking at doing something about that. But one of the keys here for Peter Dutton is how is he, and it's along these lines, Steve, how is he able to say, okay, I'm coming in, I'm going to fix it? He's got a free run in terms of saying, this guy presided over all the prices going up to 15%. But what's his solution? And I don't think, he's come up with a convincing one. And that's not even his fault because there isn't an easy fix to all of this. And this is what you're saying. I mean, inflation at 3% means that huge price rise we've seen, especially at the grocery counter, let's face it, it's never being reversed, ever, no matter who gets elected. And that's terrible news. The rates, they do matter though, because, people in Sydney have mortgages of $1 million, $800,000. So that's a couple of hundred a month. That's kind of, you're talking about what's normally given in a tax cut. So if the government were to go get a second one of those, that would really help them. I just found it interesting. The RBA basically spelled out today, here's your rate cut before a campaign. We're not doing another rate cut during one.
Great work, Andrew. I'll catch up with you soon, mate. Thanks for that.